This is Land of Havilah, Isaiah 41. From start to finish, it's Yahweh making the case for himself. Verse 1. Keep silent before me, islands, and let the peoples renew their strength. Let them come near, then let them speak. Let's meet together for judgment. Who has raised up one from the east? Who called him to his foot in righteousness? He hands over nations to him and makes him rule over kings. He gives them like the dust to his sword, like the driven stubble to his bow. He pursues them and passes by safely, even by a way that he had not gone with his feet. Who has worked and done it, calling the generations from the beginning? I, Yahweh, the first, and with the last I am he. The islands have seen and fear. The ends of the earth tremble. They approach and come. Everyone helps his neighbor. They say to their brothers, Be strong. So the carpenter encourages the goldsmith. He who smooths with the hammer encourages him who strikes the anvil, saying of the soldering, It's good. And he fastens it with nails that it might not totter. Comment in verse 1, Keep silent before me, islands. When Yahweh says islands, he means those who are far off and estranged from him. He's commanding those who are far off to be quiet and listen. He says, Take a little time to gather your thoughts, then come and make your case to me. Let's meet together and reason. In verse 2, he says, I would ask you, who was it that raised up someone from the east, called him to stand in righteousness, will hand nations over to him, will make him rule over kings, and reduce nations to dust and stubble with his sword and bow? The answer to the riddle is that the Father raised up the Son to stand in righteousness, and in the end he'll hand the nations over to him to reduce them to dust and stubble. And in verse 3, the answer to the next riddle is that it's God who pursues kings and nations at no risk to himself and passes by them without even touching the ground with his feet. In verse 4, he says, Whose work do you see around you? Whose work has it been from the beginning? Who is it that spoke to each generation of men from the beginning? Of course, you'll have to agree it's I, Yahweh, the one who was and is to come. In verse 5, the islands, meaning those who are far off, see my works and fear me, tremble before me, and come to me. In verse 6, there are those of you who are busy with your idols. You can't build them fast enough. Your carpenters who make them from wood are of one mind with your goldsmiths who make them of gold. One says to the other, Good job, that's nice work. You do your best to stabilize your idols so they won't fall over. Coming up, we should remember that Christians are offspring of Abraham, Galatians 3:16, so Yahweh's including Christians in what he says. Verse 8, But you, Israel, my servant Jacob, whom I've chosen, the offspring of Abraham, my friend, you whom I've taken hold of from the ends of the earth and called from its corners, and said to you, You're my servant, I've chosen you and have not cast you away. Comment, it wouldn't make sense to anyone in Isaiah's time that God would call Israel from the four corners of the earth, because Israel wasn't scattered and never had been, and it wouldn't make sense that he'd call the offspring of Abraham from the four corners of the earth. But now we know that Israel would be scattered, and we know that God has raised up people to himself from all over the earth. Therefore, we can easily understand, whereas Isaiah's contemporaries couldn't have understood, how God will gather his own from all over the world. An angel speaking with Daniel told him that the prophecy would be shut up and sealed until the time of the end, Daniel 12:9, meaning that prophecy would be more understood as time went by. And we certainly find that to be the case with prophecy in general. Today we understand the Old Testament prophets better than any generation of the past because fulfillments of Old Testament prophecies keep happening. That which previous generations saw dimly, we see in completion. We have the great advantage of hindsight. Still speaking to his own, Yahweh says, verse 10, Don't you be afraid, for I'm with you. Don't be dismayed, for I'm your God. I'll strengthen you. Yes, I'll help you. Yes, I'll uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness. Comment, don't be afraid or discouraged. God is with you and will strengthen, help, and uphold you. Verse 11, Behold, all those who are incensed against you will be disappointed and confounded. Those who strive with you will be like nothing and shall perish. You'll seek them and won't find them, even those who contend with you. Those who war against you will be as nothing, as a non-existent thing. For I, Yahweh your God, will hold your right hand, saying to you, Don't be afraid, I'll help you. Don't be afraid, you worm Jacob, and you men of Israel. I'll help you, says Yahweh, and your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. Comment in verse 14, Israel is like a worm. God's people aren't nearly what they ought to be as individuals or as a nation. But Yahweh is the Redeemer, which means he takes unworthy people and makes them worthy. Though we be worms, yet he redeems us on an individual scale and national scale. Verse 15. Behold, I have made you into a new sharp threshing instrument with teeth. You'll thresh the mountains and beat them small, and will make the hills like chaff. You'll winnow them, and the wind will carry them away, and the whirlwind will scatter them. You'll rejoice in Yahweh. You'll glory in the Holy One of Israel. Comment in verses 15 and 16, we can overcome mountains of problems. We can pulverize our problems into dust, and they'll blow away in the wind. When that happens, we'll rejoice in Yahweh and glory in the Holy One of Israel. We'll overcome because he transforms us into a sharp threshing instrument with teeth. Now switching to another metaphor to say again that God's determined to benefit us, verse 17. The poor and needy seek water, and there is none. Their tongue fails for thirst. I, Yahweh, will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I'll open rivers on the bare heights and springs in the middle of the valleys. I'll make the wilderness a pool of water, and the dry land springs of water. I'll put cedar, acacia, myrtle, and oil trees in the wilderness. I'll set cypress trees, pine, and box trees together in the desert, that they may see, know, consider, and understand together that Yahweh's hand has done this, and the Holy One of Israel has created it. Comment in verses 17 to 20, there's a metaphor that the world is a desert to us. We're thirsty and seek water, but find none. Our tongue is so dry it doesn't work. But God will not forsake us. He'll turn things around for us. He'll make rivers flow from the mountains, turn the desert into a pool, and make springs come up in arid places. Forests will grow where there used to be rocks and sand. Turning again to idolaters who are far off from him, Yahweh says, verse 21. Produce your cause, says Yahweh. Bring out your strong reasons, says the King of Jacob. Comment verse 21 we just read as a return to verse 1. Again, let's establish some right judgment here, some sanity for a change. Why would you continue in idolatry and ignore me? The argument in this chapter so far has been along the lines of, turn away from idolatry and turn to me. What have your idols ever done? Will they send a Messiah in righteousness to conquer the nations like I? Look around you. Is what you see a product of your idols, of what your idols have done? Is it they who spoke to all the generations of men from the beginning? Is it they who will take hold of their people from the four corners of the earth and call them in? Is it they who give strength to their own and uphold them? Is it they who reduce your problems to dust and turn your desert into springs? Tell me. In further criticism of idols, Yahweh says, verse 22, let them announce and declare to us what shall happen. Declare the former things, what they are, that we may consider them, and know the latter end of them, or show us things to come. Declare the things that are to come hereafter, that we may know that you are gods. Yes, do good or do evil, that we may be dismayed and see it together. Behold, you are of nothing, and your work is of nothing. He who chooses you is an abomination. Comment in verse 22, let your idols declare the future if they can. Let them declare what happened in the long gone past if they can. Then maybe we'll give them some consideration. In verse 23, let's see them do anything at all, good or evil, something, to show us why we should fear them. But the truth is, your idols are nothing. They don't know the beginning or the end, and he who chooses one is an abomination. Speaking of the Messiah again, verse 25, I've raised up one from the north, and he's come from the rising of the sun, one who calls on my name, and he shall come on rulers as on mortar, and as the potter treads clay. Comment in verse 25, the mason mixes mortar with his feet, and the potter mixes clay with his feet. So shall the Messiah tread even the mightiest of men with his feet. Verse 26, who has declared it from the beginning that we may know, and before that we may say he's right? Surely there's no one who declares, surely there's no one who shows, surely there's no one who hears your words. Comment in verse 26, no one but God declares it from the beginning. In other words, from the beginning, only God knows what the outcome will be, and only God lets the outcome be known. The outcome he has in mind here is specifically the outcome of history, that the righteous one he sent will tread the nations. Everything will be under the lordship of Jesus Christ when all this comes to its conclusion, so we should use that knowledge to our benefit. Verse 27. I'm the first to say to Zion, behold, look at them, and I'll give one who brings good news to Jerusalem. When I look, there is no man, even among them there is no counselor who, when I ask of them, can answer a word. Behold, all of them, their deeds are vanity and nothing. Their molten images are wind and confusion. Comment in verse 27, God says he'll make the first move. He looks at his people, sees their condition, and will give one who brings good news to Jerusalem, meaning he'll send a person who'll bring good news. Because in verse 28, as it is now, no one can answer to God for himself. Not a solitary one of us has an excuse. We'll stand before him and not have a single word in our own defense. In verse 29, all our idols are nothing. They're wind and confusion. Isaiah 42 is next.